Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I must get the Today Bro going to introduce me like that, Harry. Thank you. I'm going to have a word with them after this. It's absolutely lovely to be here with you this morning. Thank you for coming. I'm promising you a thought-provoking, stimulating morning of discussion. I hope we're going to reflect the rapidly evolving times that we're living through, and also some of the big challenges we face, matched with what I hope will be solutions, optimism, and hope. There is hope, I think. I'm going to reveal in a moment lots of interesting things that are coming down the track that are going to have big impacts on our lives, make big changes to the way we all live. And we're also planning to have some fun as well as we reflect on all of this along the way. You'll see that I'm up here. I'm very proud to be up here, actually, with three women. We've got what we're calling it a wannel this morning, or a womal, I'm not quite sure. It's very refreshing. It's not deliberate, but perhaps a sign of the times and the way things are changing. And it is really awesome to be here on stage with three very powerful and very good speakers. In a few minutes, Georgia Lewis Anderson is going to be drawing on her work with Google, Microsoft, and Meta. She's going to tell us how businesses can most effectively harness AI, which I think you'll all agree is the billion-dollar question at the moment. My former BBC colleague and co-podcast host, Susanna Streeter, who I shared an office with down the road at NBH for many years, is going to be looking at the big picture, geoeconomics, geopolitics, and leadership in these uncertain times. And then finally, we have Channel 4 climate news presenter Maeve Campbell, who's arguably going even bigger than that. She's going to talk to us about the future of the planet and how important it is that we get the messaging right to persuade us all to make the changes that we've got to make to combat climate change and make the world more sustainable. But I wanted to start this morning by talking to you for a few minutes about three key tech trends that I'm seeing in my work as the BBC's technology editor. The first one, of course, is an absolute no-brainer. We're going to start with artificial intelligence, the most powerful and disruptive tech revolution of this century. Now, I realise that we're quite early on, so do feel free to come back to me in 75 years' time and tell me I got it all wrong. You and me and our family and friends, we might not all realise it yet. I'm not sure that my mum does, but we've got a ringside seat to an industrial revolution-sized cultural shift. And I wanted to share with you this morning some of the projects. There are so many, it is really hard to shortlist, but I've chosen a few recent AI projects that I think are brilliant and really quite exciting. The first one is about cleaner skies. An AI tool that was trialled by American Airlines has enabled pilots to halve the amount of contrails they produce. Now, we know what they are. They're the streaks in the sky, and we know that they contribute to global warming. On a similar green note, Google's Project Green Light, which is running in Manchester, is using a combination of AI and Google Maps to try to not only lower emission, but also improve traffic flow. Number two, I really hate this picture. I've called it mind over matter. A microchip created using AI has enabled a paralysed man to walk again just by thinking about it. Now, I'd like to start by saying I do not have a chip in my head, as far as I'm aware. But here I am wearing some neurotech, looking, I think, rather fabulous. What's going on here is this device was tracking my brainwaves. And what I was doing was taking part in an experiment where I had to drive a jet ski in VR using only my mind. So I was looking at this screen, and I had the handles in front of me on the screen and the sort of beautiful sea and horizon in front of me. And I had to think about squeezing the handlebars to make the jet ski move. I didn't have any controllers. I couldn't touch anything. So I did. It's actually quite hard to think about doing something and not doing it, but I managed to do it, and I zipped off across the sea. And it was an incredible and very weird experience to be doing something just using the power of your mind. And I think what I did was a fun experiment, but the applications for this in healthcare are huge, especially in terms of things like rehabilitation for stroke patients and those with other brain injuries. I think this, not in that form, hopefully, is going to turn out to be an absolute game changer. And on the subject of health, we need to talk about health, because AI is really powerful in the potential to change the way we treat illness, disease, and encourage longevity, I think. A new antibiotic that was created by AI was able to kill a deadly hospital superbug that we've never had a cure for before. There are so many of these types of stories, especially in the field of disease symptom spotting and diagnosis, but also in admin, things like unblocking hospital beds and helping hospitals to run more efficiently. I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of story coming through. The next one, this is a big one, nuclear fusion. In February last year, a university academic by the name of Brian Spears said he'd used AI to predict an outcome to an experiment which has resulted in a breakthrough in the ongoing mission to create nuclear fusion. Now, this is very basically the way in which the sun gets its energy, and if we could crack it, we would solve enormous problems. In theory, we would have limitless green source of power. It would be amazing. He wrote, for 100 trillionths of a second, I can't even begin to imagine how short that was, but there we are, we produced 10 petawatts of power, which is the brightest thing in the solar system, he wrote. What an amazing moment that must have been. Now, I need to tell you that they've been trying to do this since the 1960s, right? So it's certainly not one of those things that's going to happen overnight. I'm not going to stand here and tell you we're on the brink of solving our energy problems. But the point about it is that AI can massively speed up the pace of the research of this sort of thing, because it can be set to analyse enormous quantities of data at a speed that's never been physically possible before. I obviously can't talk to you about AI and not mention ChatGPT. It's been 2.5 years since the AI viral chatbot exploded into our lives, and along with it, that whole genre of generative AI. I think for lots of people, it was probably the first time they've ever knowingly interacted with it, even though we know it's been around us for years, it's been curating our social media feeds, it's been deciding what we want to watch next on Netflix, it may even have been helping to calculate your car insurance. Generative AI tools are really quite a small part, but they are certainly the loudest part, aren't they, of the AI pie. And we know they can write songs, poems, speeches, essays, news articles, computer code. They can create images and videos. They can summarize meetings, create PowerPoint presentations, and they can do your kids' homework. Now, whether they should be doing all of that is another debate, and there's absolutely no question that it's going to change the world of work beyond recognition. My youngest child is 4, and I don't think he will ever have a job in the way that we understand the world of work. And we're rapidly moving towards agentic AI as well. It's a really horrible phrase. Lots of people hate it. I don't really like it, but there we are. That's what we're calling it. And these are AI agents that can churn through more complex, multi-step tasks. They can do things like plan holidays. They can work through an itinerary. You can leave them running to do more difficult stuff than answer a simple question or create a simple image. They're already being used by the big firms like McKinsey. And I think that they're about to have their ChatGPT moment, and I think it won't be long before we all have them. Now, I'd just like to qualify that by saying I was listening to a podcast about them the other day, and the host asked a data scientist from Anthropic, does this mean it will be able to do our tax returns? And my ears pricked up. I thought, oh, that would be good, wouldn't it? And they said, well, yes, it will do your tax return, because AI agents, they want to please. You already know if you're using these tools, you know, you ask it something and it will say, yeah, great, you're really smart, here's the answer. But they probably won't get it right. So the advice that I have gleaned from this is, if it says it can do your tax return, I wouldn't trust it at this moment. The second thing that I think is coming quite quickly is driverless cars. Now, last month, I took a ride in a driverless car across central London, and it was the first time that I'd done it here in the UK. I've done it in other countries. Here I am sitting in it, and the guy next to me is one of the bosses of Uber. The government says it wants to allow trials of fully automated vehicles, that's with no safety driver, on UK roads next year. And Uber says it's ready to go. It's ready to add robo-taxis to its app as soon as the law changes. Well, I lived to tell the tale of my little ride there. The car handled all of the challenges that the busy London streets could throw at it. We had bikes, we had temporary traffic lights, we had people getting in and out of the wrong lane. We even had some guy who decided that the middle of the road was actually the pavement and swung down it on his crutches. And the safety driver, who was a very nice man called George, didn't have to do anything at all. And there was also a big red panic button. We didn't have to press that either. To be honest, in televisual terms, it was quite boring, but, you know, it was safe. My own car is about 5 years old, and it's already more computer than cars, and that has only increased in recent years. Driverless cars have done millions and millions of miles on the roads in places like the US, in China, in Singapore, in the UAE. And their safety rate is consistently above that of human drivers. The issue is that people are quite nervous about getting inside them. There was a poll last year which suggested that 37% of British people wouldn't get in a driverless car. Coming back to my 4-year-old again, I wonder whether he'll ever learn to drive, or certainly nowhere near in the mechanical way that most of us may well have done. And once you think about driverless cars, you think, well, actually, what does the interior of a driverless car look like? Because you don't need all that furniture. Do you need a steering wheel? And I wanted to show you this. Oh, sorry, I'll get back one. I wanted to show you this, which is a concept car I saw at a conference. I've never seen it outside of a conference. I don't think you can buy it, but I'd be quite up for it, to be honest. It's more like a sort of cafe, isn't it? And the screens, the windows are screens, and it becomes like much more of a social experience. And there are lots of experts that suggest that something like this is the future of travel. Uber says it doesn't think people will own their own cars. I mean, it would, wouldn't it? You know, obviously it's in their interest for all of us to use Uber. But the idea of having a network of these zipping about to on demand to take you where you want to go is quite appealing. And the final thing that I want to mention is glasses. Do you remember Google Glass? Do you remember Snapchat specs? They're still with us. You probably never saw them in real life unless you went to a tech conference. I've seen a few of them, but I've never worn them out in the street. Tech companies have spent a long time trying to get this right. And I think eventually they're going to do that. And I do think that eventually we will all have them. Because sometimes things have got potential, but they've not hit the right moment in time. Video streaming, for example, couldn't really take off until broadband was better. Handheld computers existed before smartphones, but it took the arrival of the iPhone, really, before we all got one of those. And you've also got to bear in mind that things have changed a lot since the pandemic. People have embraced digital tech at a rate that they never did before, and I don't think we're going to go backwards there. I was one of the first people in the world to try out Apple's VR headset. I was invited to some very weird secret session in Cupertino at Apple's HQ in the US. And I spent a lot of time on my way out there thinking, what on earth is Apple doing? Why are they doing VR? And why are they doing it now? And then when I sat there, I wasn't allowed to film it, by the way. This is a picture that Apple took of me. Because I had to go there on my own. I had to sign NDAs and everything. I hope they're not still valid. But the demo that I did was all about the everyday things that I do on my phone all the time, only in big, gorgeous, high-quality digital form. You know, looking at photos, but they were the size of the room, taking 3D videos of my kids' birthday parties, messaging my mum, setting virtual timers above the cooker while I was cooking. Even doing this little thing where I could vacuum my apartment, but I was hoovering coins as I went to sort of incentivize me to do more cleaning, I suppose. You know, I've been to so many VR demos in my life, and usually they're like the big, awesome, walk with dinosaurs, shoot monsters, save the world type things. But really, how often do you do that compared with how often you vacuum the carpet? This was much more about living your everyday life in a different format. And then 2 years later, quite recently actually, I sat in another room at Meta this time, having a similar experience. These are their prototype Orion glasses. The jury's out on how stylish they look, I'm not quite sure. This time I played, and I'm really bad at sport, but I managed to win, so I'm quite proud of myself, this weird game of kind of AR ping pong where I was standing opposite a woman who was also wearing the glasses. And we had this kind of court between us, and we were batting this ball backwards and forwards. I mean, we must have looked totally mad to everybody else, but it was a really good game. And the other thing that I was doing in those glasses was similar to what I'd done with Apple. I was doing everyday admin. And then they showed me this demo where I looked at a selection of ingredients on a table, and it came up with a recipe that I could use. Use to make something out of it. It was very specific, by the way. It was chia seed, vanilla flavoured banana bread muffins. I suspect there weren't too many options, actually, for that. And I'm ashamed to say I have not yet made them. So I don't know if the recipe's any good. But I've spent quite a long time thinking about these experiences and wondering how these products fit alongside what we've already got and what gap they fill. Do you remember when the tablet came out and we all thought, why do we need a tablet? We've got phones and we've got laptops, but we do need a tablet, it turns out. They did find their niche. And I think now what I've got on my face in those pictures was an embryonic form of the next smartphone. I don't think it will look anything like either of those. I think it will look much more like an ordinary pair of glasses. I mean, these are 5 years away from even coming to market. They're not going to look like that when they launch. They might be insanely expensive, like Apple's, and not many people will buy them. But something one day is going to replace the smartphone. And I think big tech is betting on this. It's telling us that what we really need is specs appeal. We'll see whether they're right. So that's the end of my speech. I'm going to hand over now to Georgia Lewis Anderson, who is renowned for her work on generative AI with Google, Microsoft, and Meta. She's an award-winning AI content and prompt engineering strategist. She's worked in broadcasting for Apple Music, Channel 4, Virgin, and also the BBC. We're going to hear more about AI for business. Please give Georgia a round of applause. Thank you.